Do I need to push this one? Ah, that's okay. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome everyone back. This is very exciting. It's the first time back in 2 years. Before I start, I would like to acknowledge that our meeting is being held on the traditional territories of the Lower Mainland Coastal Salish people, and we give thanks for their hospitality on these lands and the opportunity to work and play here. The meeting is called to order in the quorum. Yes, we do. Okay. We have the agenda before us. Items on the consent agenda. Does anyone have anything that they would like to talk about that is on the consent agenda? Thank you. All in favor of approving the items on the consent in item 1? Thank you. Okay. Great. So we can move to item 2. I'm a little bit out of practice here doing this in person. I feel a little strange, actually. I feel like I should make a little speech before we go ahead and just welcome everyone back. Say it's really nice to see everybody in person below the chin. Yeah, this is really great. It's been a long, hard 2 years, and I'm hoping that we are coming out of it. So, here we are. And everyone's doing okay, and glad to see you all. Okay. Item 2, we've got any public delegations today? No, but now that we're back in person, maybe that will happen a little more frequently. And item 2.1, we have a presentation from Constable Shipley on our homeless outreach work. Thank you. Please go ahead. Yes, please.
The homeless outreach project basically came up during the period of COVID. I reached out to other transit police departments to see how they dealt with it. We're the only department in Canada, so I reached out to transit police departments down in the States, many down there, and in Europe as well, because the whole homeless component on public transit, it's not just here, it's worldwide. We're not going to stop homelessness, or it's just too much of it in the Lower Mainland, but we focus on folks that are on public transit, bus loops, on buses, on SkyTrain vehicles, and we do what we can with respect to whether it be just giving them a blanket, it's cold, something to eat, trying to find shelter, that can be challenging. And I know when I go up to talk to somebody that's homeless, I know people have their phones out and they're expecting me to do something, talk to them, be negative, whatever it is. But what's interesting is when they see what I actually go there to do and talk to this person and try to help them out, and some of them get pretty close because the public seem to be interested when the police are engaged with somebody. More than once, when I'm finished dealing with the person, that person will come up to me and say, "I got to tell you something, officer. When I saw you get out, I was thinking something bad was going to happen, but I saw what you did, and thank you." That's an emotional thing for me, because we get into policing to help people. People go to jail, there's bad people, but that's a small part of it, especially on a public transit system. There's far more people on public transit that need help and support, as opposed to people that are breaking the law. They're on there, but for me, my focus is helping those people. I just would like to highlight that homelessness in the Lower Mainland is perhaps a much bigger issue than people realize. And it's often aligned with drug addiction and homelessness and drug addiction and mental illness. That's public transit in a nutshell, right? Like dealing with all these folks, and there's so many of them. And what I always say to people is, if you see somebody that needs a hand, don't be afraid of them. Text us and let us know. We can go check that person.
Thank you. I do get emotional when I see that. That's a new video that we did a couple weeks ago. It's, first of all, thanks for having me here. I love the opportunity to talk to any of you that will listen with respect to homelessness in the Lower Mainland. And I'm used to walking around and doing presentations and having a clicker, so this is a bit different for me. So bear with me, and welcome to if anyone else is listening outside of this room, welcome. So yeah, this is just 4 or 5 quick slides that sort of go over the video that you just saw. I thought I would start out with how this sort of came to be for me. So I'm a neighborhood police officer with my practical transit, which you likely don't know that. And COVID hit, seems like 10 years ago, 2 years ago, and I remember clearly sitting at my desk and thinking, well, being a neighborhood police officer, which often involves engaging with groups, schools, community groups, that part of my duties dissipated simply because those weren't happening. Those types of engagements weren't happening, obviously. So I remember very clearly sitting at my desk saying, what am I going to do? I need to do something. I don't know how long we're going to be in this situation for, so I need to focus, refocus. And this is what I wanted to focus on, because it's very clear that it's a big issue in the Lower Mainland and on our public transit system. So my first question is, what do I do? And I thought, well, I should talk to other people that are in the same business as myself. Well, there's no other people in Canada that have police departments that focus on public transit. So I thought I would start calling down south, because I know that it's very big down there, and in Europe. I've spent a lot of time in Europe, families there, so I'm very aware of the public transit systems over there and how they work. So yeah, so as you can see in the first slide there, it was a lot of Zoom calls. Those are just some of the departments that I reached out to. I found every single department that I reached out to and inquired about how they dealt with public transit in their cities, very, very open. I was really pleased. In fact, I was just sending generic emails to these police services and getting emails back from deputies and chiefs. So I was really excited about that. So we just had numerous conversations about how they dealt with the issue, how big of an issue it is in all these cities that are listed here. One note that really fascinated me was at Bay Area, so San Francisco, basically. The homeless issue in that area and in public transit in general was so bad that what they would do is all the train stations, like for here, like SkyTrain stations, they would park the vehicles in the stations. The homeless folks at night would come in and onto the trains, and they would walk the stations, and the homeless folks would sleep in those trains, which is crazy. It was fascinating to me to hear that, but hopefully we don't get to that point here where it's that bad. But yeah, it was very interesting to know. So this slide basically was just put up just to show how I sort of educated myself with respect to how it's being dealt with in other cities around the world. Yeah, next slide, please. Homeless outreach team. What is it? What's the purpose? So the term homeless outreach team I got from San Francisco. That's what they use. They have members. There's a team. We have a team here. This is the team, right? When we're done with this, and if anybody is supportive of it and thinks this is not a bad idea, maybe we could get more than one team in. But having said that, our membership are aware of what I'm doing, and the buy-in has been pretty good. It's not 100%. You're never going to convince everybody to do this type of work, and I'm cool with that. That's fine. But some are buying in, so that's good. So what is it? We engage with many vulnerable and homeless individuals in and around public transit, on Canada Line, SkyTrain, Coast Mountain Bus, C-Bus, in bus loops, bus stops. I work downtown a lot. I'll just drive the Granville corridor at times, and lots of people passed out at bus stops and stuff like that. So I'll engage with them, check on them. TransLink property as well. Noted here bridges. They own. TransLink owns a lot of property. I've learned, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, Knight Street. I was at Knight Street yesterday underneath the Knight Street Bridge. There was 3 new camps there. They just popped up, consisting of 7 homeless people. So I get those calls. TransLink is now aware. TransLink property is now aware if there's a camp that needs to be dealt with, removed. They'll call me, and we have a role in that. It's not punitive. We're not going there to kick people out and say, get off our property. We don't want to see you. It's absolutely not that. But I think there's another slide that will address that. North arm of the Fraser River Bridge from Richmond going over to the Vancouver side. There's a bike bridge along there that parallels the Canada Line. I walk that every day. There's camps up on there. I had a suicidal person just walking on that bridge a couple weeks ago, and you just never know what you're going to encounter just when you go out and focus on looking for these folks, right? That's what I find is interesting. When I go out now to work and I'm in my police car, or if I'm on the line, I'm looking for people that perhaps could use some assistance, as opposed to responding to a call. If there's a call that somebody needs checking around, I'll do it. But my role with respect to this type of work is actually looking for these people that maybe we can stop the world spinning here for a couple of seconds and have a conversation and see what's up with them, if they need some help, right? It's very, very simple. It's just a matter of slowing everything down and talking to these people. It really, really is that simple. Next slide, please. We focus on supporting vulnerable folks at risk, homeless, who frequent the transit system and surrounding areas. Referrals for services, that's very common. I've built over the past 2 years, I've built relationships with different groups that are focused on homelessness. My best, well, I've got a few of them, but I've cultivated a really good relationship with the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction. There's a lady who unfortunately just retired from there, who would assist me and come out to different camps and areas where homeless people that I was aware of. She would come with me, she would bring her laptop, and she would sign these people to get BC housing. She wasn't for BC housing, she was with the ministry, but she actually took applications for these people. Sometimes if they didn't have ID or something like that, I would assist in getting ID for these people. So that's fantastic. We can actually go and engage somebody and at least get them on the list, right? So that's been really good. With respect to helping these folks. 211 is the go-to. I think all our patrol members now know that they encounter somebody and they're interested in a shelter. 211 is the call. COVID really did a number on shelters. There's never enough, we know that. but they're still going some, so they know, members know to call that if they encounter somebody who is interested. What I find is interesting though, that the majority of folks that are out there and that are homeless, when you offer to try and find them a place to stay, the vast majority don't want it. Because I know when I started this, I thought I'm going to change the world here. I'm absolutely not changing much of anything, to be honest, that I'm trying. But these folks like to live their lives the way they live their lives, on their own, be autonomous. They don't want to go to shelters, and I've heard a million stories about shelters and drugs and weapons and knives and people getting rolled, all that stuff. So it's interesting. They'll take my food, they'll take my coffee, they'll take my blankets, they'll take my socks. But sometimes it's just that, and I'm okay with that, because it's something, right? They don't expect it. Yeah, so establish and maintain positive relationships on the vulnerable who frequent the transit system. A lot of these folks we see day after day, and the only place they go is our system. So why not try and have some kind of relationship with them that's positive, as opposed to them coming and getting into it with other members. It's not always myself that's going to engage with these folks. So my thought was, if we show these folks that, hey, we do actually care about you, we'll help you out, perhaps that will hopefully, and I think it does, help how they, when they're on our system, how they're behaving and how they're engaging with other people that are using the system. Next slide, please. So I have reached out to Patrol and educated them as to sort of what we're trying to do. I asked them to engage with the homeless as part of their everyday patrols. It's not like it used to be where, you might encounter somebody that's homeless and they don't have a fare and write them a ticket, see ya, and that's it, right? Why would we do that when there's an opportunity to actually help someone out? We all know the greatest satisfaction in life is giving, right, and helping somebody. We all know that. Why don't we do it more? So that's kind of what I've asked Patrol to do. And it's kind of cool when I get an email, hey Bruce, I gave out 3 blankets last night and 10 granola bars and a pair of socks. Thank you. Put it in my stats. So if you encounter a vulnerable person or persons on transit, try and help them out. We do support transit properties, and I talked a little bit about that with respect to camps. We are involved when a camp needs to be removed, but it says, how do we approach these situations? Next slide, please. When a camp is located on transit-owned property, we act with empathy. Our role is not enforcement, but to keep the peace. So the process will be, a camp is come to the attention of transit property. Amber or Elias will call me up and say, Bruce, we have a camp that needs to be removed. The first step is to respectfully let the people in that camp know that they can't be there, they're on private property. And a notice to vacate is served to those folks, not by the police, by a representative of transit. We are there strictly to keep the peace. That's all we're there for. So the person or persons in that camp are made aware of the situation. That's where I come in. It's not just, you got to get out of here, this camp's being removed in 2-3 days, whatever it is. That's where I come in, and then I'll talk to them and say, okay, we have a situation here, you're on some property, can't really be here. Let's see if there's some alternatives. So 2-3 days later, whenever transit decides to come back to remove that camp, I will be there, or members will be there for that process as well, strictly to keep the peace, because it can get emotional. People don't like their stuff being removed. I get that. But we try to sort of nip it in the bud and say, okay, this is happening, like I said earlier. But let's talk about some alternatives. Would you go to another place if we can find it for you. Are you interested on getting on the list for BC housing? Are you interested in modular housing? Whatever it is. So we do offer that. That's the whole goal here, is to acknowledge that these folks do have to move, but we're not just going to say, see ya. So yeah, so that I find that part of what I do, the camps, is really, really increasing. Like I said, I was at Main Street yesterday. There's 3 new camps there. Underneath the Oak Street Bridge on the south side, there's currently 4 there, and the Golden Years Bridge, non-stop homelessness underneath that bridge, and they call it non-stop. That one is just very easy. So yeah, so I believe next slide might be questions here. I know that was short and sweet, but I just wanted to, anyone, once again, anyone that will listen to sort of what we're doing here, I think is great. It's work that I love, absolutely love, and this complete service allows me to do it. My hope is in time that we can focus on it more and perhaps have a member or two that's all they do. They do that down in the States. We're not there yet. This is right now, this project is on my desk, but there's other things that I have conduct of. So I'm hoping it can become more of what we do. Because in my opinion, on what I see, it's not getting better with respect to homeless folks. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to try and answer.
Thank you, Constable Shipley. Yes, please.
Thank you for that presentation. I'm the Lower Mainland District Commander of Garrison Reed. So a couple of questions. When you did your intelligence gathering, did you match up with some of the POJs because we do have a homeless situation. It's not just germane to the transit place or TransLink. And before we had Chief Jones present at the Lower Mainland, I think he came to our divisional management team. So I'm very curious if you would like to come and present to one of our learning events, just for maybe an hour, because I think it'd be very, if you haven't latched up with our detachments, we put you in touch with them. And so I would like to work together, and we're here to support Transit Place and it's 118. So if you need any help from the Lower Mainland, I'd certainly be willing to make sure that everybody's interconnected as they should be. So thank you.
Well, I don't know how to respond to that other than I smile on my face. And yes, the answer is yes to anything you just said. So perhaps we can.
Constable, let me just interrupt. I think you need to turn on your mic and
Sorry about that. Like I say, this is all this process to do. So my answer to that question with a smile is yes, thank you very much. I would absolutely love that. I won't give you respect to my answer. Yes. Thank you.
thank you. And I think Chief, what did you say?
You're getting used to this. You're the first one up. So first of all, thanks. I get a chance to quickly sat down. The video was playing, but as you can tell, Constable Shipley, Bruce here, is very passionate about this and recognizes that it's one of our, say, priorities as we go forward. There's a lot of homeless and vulnerable people whose only access to getting around the Lower Mainland is transit, and that creates sometimes, as he's indicated, a bit of the conflict in between accessing transit when people don't have the right amount of fare or fare, and our need to be both compassionate and understanding that. So we really appreciate that Bruce is here, and you'll see that Sergeant Cheryl Simpkins joined him. Cheryl's the sergeant in charge of the whole neighborhood policing unit, and I think it is one of those ones as we start to educate for people, knowing what the priority is and knowing what the options are, as opposed to looking at enforcement as it. We try to say that everyone has a right to be safe within the environment they find themselves, right? So homeless people are at risk of being victims of crime, victims of violence, victims of other assaults by other individuals and that. And our goal is to keep making sure they're safe within their environments, right? If you can't get them out of their environment, we need to check on them, provide them warm clothes, blankets, socks, and that. Bruce has, and I'd say Cheryl's team, there's another example that just happened. And he really hits on the head is the problem is getting bigger and it's growing. It needs interagency cooperation even beyond policing, right? The roles for CSOs in this, the roles for social services and everyone else who goes in it, but it doesn't mean we stop trying. There was another recent success with the neighborhood police officer, Jenny Chung, who dealing with an individual actually came here for the 2010 Olympics and then found himself out of work and wasn't a resident and lost his passport, which kind of put the end in the opportunity. But through work that the neighborhood police officer, Jenny Chung, Cheryl, and her team, just getting this person their documents back from their home country now means the person is able to get jobs, apply for benefits, and do things. It makes quite a change. So even helping that one person becomes a success in terms of it. So I say, thanks to Bruce and Cheryl and everyone who's doing this work on a daily basis.
Yes, we are getting used to these microphones. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions?
Thank you. Yeah, first, not a question, just a comment. So I just want to thank you very much for what you do. I'm sure when you started as a police officer, this wasn't probably the path that you anticipated you would go down. And that's one of the fascinating things about this profession is that you find different things along the way that really, grab your passion that you want to pursue. You really nailed it at the beginning too, because I think like a lot of people think that our job is about law enforcement, and when they see you coming, they probably think you're there to enforce the law and tell them to leave and that kind of thing. But that other side of policing, helping people in crisis and helping people get to a better place, you're making a difference in their life. You're really doing that. So my hat goes off to you. Really, really thank you for what you're doing. It's important work, making a difference in our community. And similar to what Maureen said, you may be connected with Constable Mike Lemon and from our department, similar position. And just all those connections, I think, with us and RCMP and other agencies, it's super important because, as Dave said, it's a regional issue and we all need to work together. So I'm glad you're connected. But thank you so much for what you're doing. It's really important work.
Thank you.
Thanks. And if no one else has any more questions, I would also like to echo what the others have said about the great work that you're doing. I'm really proud of this work that you've been doing, and I know you've been doing it for a while now. And I just would like to know what the board can do to support you and what you need from us. There's no chance to ask. You could always ask another time too. This is the front. Here comes. Joe.
Something just came into my mind. It's a pilot project that's been going on for, as you said, a long time. It needs to be a permanent position where whoever's doing the work is not doing 20, 30% of their day, because that's what it is for me. Like I have other things that I do with respect to my job and being a neighborhood police officer, and there's lots of other things that I can get into. We could have public transit broad. We know that we could have a member on the west side, east side, dealing with these people, these folks. We haven't hit on everything. There's groups, there's community groups that focus on public transit. I don't know how many Zoom meetings. When I started with this, I'm going off track, so pull me off track. But I joined every single group that had the word homelessness in all the cities. I don't know how many Zoom meetings I attended. There's lots of people, lots of groups, lots of agencies. And we talk about it, but it's boots on the ground, in my opinion, that makes any kind of impact. And that's 20 to 30% of my job. The question was, how could this fine group help? If they can help by talking to somebody of greater importance than myself and suggesting that it might not be a bad idea to have a full-time position, that would be another big smile for me.
Okay. And Maureen, I see.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The thing that crosses my mind, Constable Shipley, is that we've got an envelope of resources that are available to us to create a safe environment of public transit. And it includes a lot of different areas that need attention. Having heard your presentation this morning, it certainly reinforces for me the need for us to have some resources applied in the area that you're speaking to this morning. But it almost seems that maybe what we need to request as a board is, a reconsideration of how we're organized in respect of dealing with the homeless amongst all of the population that we serve in public transit. And so it almost seems like it's something that, the management team needs to talk about and decide whether the current approach is efficacious with respect to the use of our resources relative to the broader objective of public safety, including the safety of the homeless. So I think that's probably a better question that we need to ask, is to say, given that we've got plus or minus $40 million that is spent every year on the transit police service, are we allocating the right amount of that $40 million to dealing with the areas that you're focused on? So I guess I leave that as a question more than as an answer.
Thank you, sir, for that comment. I think it's a very, very valid comment. I think we can always do more. Obviously, I think that's what we're talking about here, and that's what I'm trying to say. Is that I could do it full time, or other members could do it full time. But even though it's been a couple of years from my first thought on it, it still feels like it's in its infancy. And just because it's, there's other things that we're doing coming here, I truly hope that speaking to everybody here and some of the people that have spoken, even if we move it forward a little bit, I'm happy. Anything for me is going to be a positive, right, after coming here today. And if nothing did happen, I would just keep doing what I'm doing, right? And that's something, right? That's how I look at it.
I just wanted to say that the context of sort of being vertically integrated with the support that you need in order to deal with the issues that you come across on a daily basis, I think is also important. And it's something that I'm hoping you're sitting on regional committees talking about the broader issues of homelessness and how to address them in relation to housing and health and mental illness and addictions and things like that as well, because it clearly isn't just a transit police service issue. It's a much broader issue in society. So I'm hoping that you're being engaged properly with respect to your expertise at a regional level, discussing how we address this issue more broadly than just safety and public transit, because you clearly have good information about a lot of the people that policies are being directed at. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Constable. That was a great report. I'm going to have to cut it short because we're planning to get over time. Really appreciate it. I look forward to the written report on the pilot, and the board's really interested in it and like to continue to care how these things are going. So definitely, we want this to stay on the radar for sure. And we do want to hear more about how this pilot is working and what we can do from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
To the next item on the agenda, which is item 2.2, Chief Officer's report.
So I'll just, at this time, we have got defer to Deputy Chief Burr and then Deputy Chief Cumber, which is the other updates.
Good morning, everyone. I know we're short on time, so I will try and be brief. I always hate doing that because we always have so much good work that we've been doing. Just a few key files that we've done from patrol. We had an on-view firearms call in North Surrey where one of our members who they'd actually already arrested somebody else. There was an altercation. The male tried to discharge a firearm. A bunch of people jumped in. Really a fray happened. He ran away and she apprehended him by herself at that point. So phenomenal work by her there. We've had two significant mental health related calls. where just the relationship our members had with the persons, they knew them, they were able to de-escalate and get them the help they required at the hospital, both suicidal and both certified at the hospital. We have a partnership with Surrey Bylaws in the RCMP in the Surrey Central City Parkway area, just again, just so timely and what Constable Shipley just discussed, it's a homeless issue and the encampments that are constant there. So just working with our partners there. And next week, we also have a tabletop exercise plan. So this is a great collaboration between our membership, SkyTrain staff, our Operation Communication Center, who will be conducting a tabletop exercise, reviewing the process on scenario-based a situation that we just had where suspects ran and actually entered one of our tunnels in the Brookwood area, a word for me to say. And we'll just be tabletop on that so that we ensure our processes are sound there. In terms of our general investigations unit, I'm sure everyone has heard of the numerous stranger assaults that we've been having on the transit system. So we were able to arrest one male for 7 of these. Great work in identifying him to a number of these. He is dealing with some mental health issues, and again, it's apprehended under Section 28. And then he was following his time that he was arrested and is currently in custody for his next court appearance. Again, another issue that we deal with constantly on transit is sexual assaults, typically groping. Another great work, we had 2 reports from a male, CCTV and our compass data were able to identify this male. Our general investigations unit attended his residence. Unfortunately, a short fight ensued, but our 3 officers were able to apprehend him, and he was actually remanded until April 26th. And he is as well awaiting a psychiatric evaluation. And another great collaborative effort on sexual assaults between Vancouver, Burnaby, and our members, where there was assaults in all 3 jurisdictions. We were able to get a conference call together, identify that these were all the same offender, and identified that this male was actually already in custody, and our jurisdictional police in Burnaby RCMP have taken the lead on that. One that's timely to our system is the identification just recently of 4 skimmer machines in 4 different locations. So we again, our general investigations unit is working with our partners at BPD Technical Crime to determine how that device was communicating, and also working with obviously the transit enterprise to determine how we can better harden those compass machines to ensure that it's that it's more difficult to put skimmers into those. On the operational support side of things, just to advise, next week, April 10th through 16th, is Emergency Services Dispatchers Appreciation Week, and I know our communications team is working on that, but just for the board's knowledge on that. And also just of interest, so we have been working with our CP Police partners, and it's taken about a year, but they are the first non-crime agency to be granted proxy access through our Operational Communication Center. And this has been work that they've been doing, and we've been doing with our RCMP counterparts through CPIC operations to have an MOU done, and that's a first in province. So excellent work by the Transit Police OCC. For our K9 team, we have a new member who has completed his basic training and will be certifying on April 20th. That'll bring us up to a strength of 7 explosive detection dogs, and we'll be looking to fill an 8th spot looking to commence in September. Of note for the board and for people's interest, the 2 newest K9s within our team are named Chopper and Runnet, and these are both 4 fallen officers. Something that the sergeant of the K9 unit saw from the New York Police Department. So once our newest member is certified, these dogs will have a badge ceremony. We will be inviting the families who have obviously been advised of this, and then we will be doing a media release. So that'll be a very nice legacy for the families to have. We continue to do sweeps out in Mission, which for the West Coast Express, which has been excellent. There was an issue out there that Mission or CMP asked us to assist them with. And just by having a member out there, there's now a lineup to pay for the West Coast Express. So there was before. I don't know how that happened. There's some correlation there. For our CST team, they do so much work. I'm just going to give you a quick synopsis versus doing files. But since January, they've recovered 4 firearms made 5 referrals to the CFO totaling 22,000 in cash and a Mercedes vehicle. They've assisted IHIT with the arrest of a second-degree murder suspect. They've arrested our General Investigations Unit with the arrest and search warrant executions for recent aggravated assault files. Conducted booster bus projects with the Richmond RCMP, which resulted in 18 arrests, 27 individuals on outstanding warrants, and completed 12 reports to Crown Councils, and that's just a 3-month period. So excellent work by them. They continue to have a substantial impact on the safety in and around transit. Over to Cheryl's side of the house, Sergeant Simkin, the Blue Eagle Cadet Program. I'm sure many of you know it launched in Surrey January 27. It's had a significant increase in averaging 20 cadets per night. So excellent work there. The Blue Eagle in Vancouver continues to have strong support and strong membership cadets there. They are preparing for a new journey, pulling together in Shuswaps in July 2022. Also, another jurisdiction, U.S. Police is looking to also launch the Legal Cadet Program, so we'll be working with them. And given the success of this, and we see this going regionally, we are actually working to copyright the Blue Eagle cadet program process to ensure the integrity of the program. In terms of the team updates, we had a new member start with us in April 2022, so a new neighborhood police officer for CSA 2. And we also have a new dashboard to try and gather some metrics, which will be reported through our strat plan. For Community Police Center down at the waterfront, just quick stat, 750 hours, volunteer hours between January and March, and almost 5,000 since it started operation in October 2020. And some of the highlights from our neighborhood police officers, Chief stole my thunder on Constable Jen Chung. The key there was that he was a Korean speaking male and wasn't able to get the services because of his language barrier. So just with her work, she was able to do that. And Constable Hanif, he's done so much work. He's done polar plunge, raising 2,200. He's a guest speaker for Kids Play for international students. He went to the West Point Gray Academy for the Other People Forum with our partners at BPD. And a toy drive and attending local mosques. So Constable Hanif is many places and does some great work with us, as do all of our NPOs. And for Sergeant Simpkin, she just recently joined the Board of Directors for the Circle of Eagles and is seeking support to join the Chiefs Community Council and Surrey National Indigenous Day in Surrey. And she has procured $10,000 of contest tickets for transit. And that is just a quick nutshell of some of the fantastic work the whole operational side is doing. Thank you.
Thank you. And over to me, the Administrative Services Division. So I'll just emphasize these are just highlights of a very busy division. For example, I had a bi-weekly meeting with my IT manager this week, and that meeting alone was just an hour to talk about the updates that section has done over a 2-week period. So anyways, from Human Resources, they're currently recruiting for 2 key positions, the Senior Manager for Finance and the Ability and Benefits Advisor. The Senior Manager for Finance, we're down to, we interviewed some really good quality candidates, so good interest in the position. We've identified one of those 5 and hope to announce in the next couple of weeks, and then have that person in place by May, hopefully, so that there's some really good overlap with Tom Smollett, who is set to retire in July. Within the training portfolio for Human Resources, they are engaged with TransLink Sauder School of Business Leadership Development Program. Currently, we have 1 cohort going through the program, which is 5 employees, 2 civilian supervisors, and 3 sergeants. And then the second cohort is ready to go in April, and that's 4 sergeants that are signed up. From IT, the primary internet connection, so within Transit Police itself, within this building, they are in the process of switching over to a new internet service provider, which will greatly increase our internet speed, and we'll no longer have to rely on a portal through Translink. So it's a huge benefit for us just to have that increased speed. From facilities, the renovations are, you can hear them drilling, but Talk about timing. I just had to push back. So that's on schedule. It's actually they're ahead of schedule, which is great. We hope to have that wrapped up by July, August, if all things go well. And that just greatly increased our. Just other than that. Currently, we're also, our facilities managers in negotiations with Metrotown for acquiring sub-office space for us. And funding, a proposal for funding has gone forward to the capital committee, and we anticipate that will be approved. And that will greatly increase our presence at Metrotown, just provide a better facility for our members as well. From the fleet side, so we ordered 9 new vehicles last year. We're still waiting for arrival. They were supposed to arrive at the end of March. It didn't come this month. But it's not just us that's affected by the delivery of vehicles. There's so many things that we see worldwide in terms of delivery. But hopefully they'll arrive soon. We're making do with what we have right now, a lot of duct tape and so on to fix parts. No, we're making do. We also received approval this year for the purchase of 11 new vehicles. That order will be placed this month, and all those vehicles are hybrids, which is great for the department. For recruiting, they have processed 4 more applicants for the 4 seats that were allotted at the GIPC. We actually just found out earlier this week that we acquired another seat, so we have 2 recruits in the offer. We'll take one of those and be able to fill that 5th seat at the GI, so it's great for us. Recruiting has also completed background on 2 lateral members who are in the hiring process. One is at 20-year service and one is 5-year service. And then we have 6 current serving police officers interested in our contract policing program here as well, which is great news for us. And then finally from training, we completed Cycle 1 training last month. That included respectful workplace training as well as an interactive legal refresher, which went really well. And recently we had 15 members participate in the police leadership conference. And last month, in conjunction with the Delta Police Department, we facilitated Taser 7 instructor course at the Regional Municipal Training Center. And Axon Master instructors presented to 12 training officers. Those training officers represent departments throughout the Lower Mainland. And there was also a representative from the Police and Security Branch in attendance, as that person will make a recommendation back to the police services on whether or not to add Taser 7 to our tools.
Sorry, so obviously you can see there's been lots of good work that's going on in this last 3-month period of time. And that as we move about. I would be remiss if I hadn't at the very beginning, which I should have, is actually just introduced Inspector Chris Mullen, who's sitting to my right here. Chris Mullen is come from us from the New Westminster Police Department on a secondment agreement. So he's here to see how things are done, right? He's here to see, obviously it's a different environment, like, being so widespread and different challenges we see. So we want to welcome Chris in here as well today for this time. The other one just to highlight is that, the success of the Blue Eagle program goes so far. Like, it started a year ago with the Vancouver Police Department and down in Vancouver, and was asked, we looked at spreading it to Surrey, and then ever since then, we're only 6 months into Surrey, and that and already other agencies who are coming in see it for a night and then want it. And so you've heard, looking at trademarking, copywriting. We want to ensure the integrity of the program. That's another thing. We're not just selling, here's a package of franchise. There's certain criteria, there's certain philosophies that go with that. And one of them, of course, is this isn't just an introduction to police officers. This is about trying to help urbanized Indigenous youth reconnect with their own cultures and customs, as you want to call them. So there will be, and we'll have some discussions as this grows, and we'll be here, like going on the canoe journey this summer. Deputy Furley will be there. In terms of it, but obviously the costs, there's greater costs being incurred in certain aspects of Some of it can come by the way of sponsorship possibly, and some of course may just be a budget. But I can assure you that we're not stopping them from doing anything because of budget costs at this time here. I mean, reasonable budget costs. In terms of it, but some amazing work that keeps going.
Thank you, Chief. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you, Marie.
One question, this is maybe a bit of an aside, but you mentioned something about a non-prime member having access to data, police data, is that right?
So it's a proxy for CPIC, but they dealt with all of the, whatever the processes and protocols they need to go through.
Was that police agency or?
It's CP Police.
Oh, CP Police, okay, so, yeah, so that's why I didn't realize CP Police were on prime.
No, they go through our, they've been using our OCC just to provide some assistance because there is that. They don't have centralized dispatch here in the whole mainland. And then they've been working through this with PRC and Ottawa through CPIC operation to be able to gain that access. That's been going on for at least the last 12 months. And we're just finalizing the MOU to allow them to have that proxy access that they'll be able to access through our OCC.
Right.
But separate to our CPIC access.
Is this something the crime board is reviewing, whether they should have direct crime access? Because again, it's an aside to our discussion, but I'm just curious because I've been on crime. And I thought all police agencies had access or were in fact mandated to be on crime.
So just CP is a federal agency has to make application that is supplemental as opposed to the RCMP, which are a provincial police force by the way of contract in terms of it. So not everyone is, like you look at places like border services is a non-crime, customs is a non, so they can make application to be a member of it, but getting access allows you access to the police files, and so you gotta make sure that you're, as to what your agency's purpose is, what your role is, what your need is to be into that system, as opposed to, and remember so CP is a federally based police agency here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So David, team, really good update. Just a few things that kind of stood out for me. One, Mike, it sounds like really good success with the contract policing program that you guys are developing. So that sounds like a good way to fill vacancies, and kudos to you on that. Anita, I just want to say that you guys did a great job. Really good update, but really good job on the skimming file. And because I think that one, you and your public affairs team, like excellent work, because that's of huge interest to the public when you're going to, pay for transit fares or cards or whatever, compass cards, and your credit cards being skimmed because, I don't know, hundreds of people probably do it every day and they don't realize they're susceptible to that. So that was a good one. And you guys did a good job on social media getting that out. So really good. I'm looking over here as well, like good job with the team. So nice work. But also Chris, great to see you here. And for the board members, I'll just say Chris is a very well-known, well-regarded, well-respected police officer in the whole region and really throughout the province. So really good catch for transit police to have you on board. So great to see you as part of the team.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay, I just want to say too that those were incredible work. I mean, just amazing amount of work that people are doing, terrific work in not always the easiest conditions. And you've got a lot of these incredibly brave things that our members are doing. It's just normal. So thank you, and thanks very much to them. Yeah, very impressive. One more, briefly, and then we have to move on. Go ahead, Maureen. Thank you.
I just want to comment, we really appreciate the collaboration with all of our POJs, and the file for the BPD that was incredible in Richmond. So I really like the fluidity between all the POJs in the Lower Mainland because there's no boundaries. And I just want to thank you and your teams for all the work that you do, and it is making a difference, and it's really very impactful here with us, with RCP and BPD. And I really like the fact that we're working in close concert to solve crime and to help people.
Okay, I guess we'll move on to the strategic plan.
Yeah, thank you. So we're in April now, 2022, which means we're well into the implementation of our new strategic plan. I've been meeting with all of the different sworn and civilian teams over the last several months and really thoroughly going through it over a period of an hour and answering any questions they may have. That's been very, very productive and positive meetings, just really across the organization. But I did want to touch on a couple of the performance metrics that we're working on. The board will be receiving their first performance report for the strat plan at the September meeting, and that will cover January to the end of June, and it'll showcase the progress against the plan, including the KPIs. And as you well know, some of those key performance indicators carry forward from previous strategic plans, and some of them are new. And some of those new KPIs did require some legwork, some back-end work to actually get them, I guess, tracking that new information and able to report on it. So the one I was going to mention specifically is crime at key transit hubs. So typically what we do when we calculate crime rates is that we look at boarded passengers across the system, we look at crime rates across the system. This is a metric we're actually trying to really focus in more deeply on some specific stations, the busier stations, so meaning waterfront and public commercial. And the only way to calculate those crime rates is actually get rid of the specific boarded passenger data from transit. So after the strategic plan is approved, the chief went to the transit CEO, Kevin Quinn, and said, this is one of the KPIs we need additional assistance from your analytics team. And they have been very, very forthcoming. They are working very, very closely with us in terms of those calculations with our manager of analytics, Pat Coe. And so we have a level of information that transit police has not had previously, and I think that we speaks to a very, very early success when it comes to the strategic plan. One of the other items I was going to touch on was it's not a KPI per se, but there was an action item related to equity, diversity, and inclusion. And so Deputy Chief Ferlin, myself, and Clark are now working on the implementation of a diversity and inclusion survey for staff to kick off this process. So what that survey would do is it would be twofold. One is to allow employees to self-identify diversity versus statistics. So previously, we've been reporting on visible diversity and gender diversity, but this allows a wider range of gender diversity to be self-reported by the employee. It allows you to report a member of the LGBTQ+ community if you self-report as being a member of the disabled community. Employees do not have to disclose that information. They can either choose not to fill out the survey, or they can select, I do choose not to disclose this information, but it allows them the opportunity to bring that information forward. And the second set of questions will be focused on inclusion. So how inclusive do you feel as a part of the organization? Do you feel like you can bring your views forward, even if you're a challenging leader in the room? Questions along that line. And so Transit has a equity, diversity, inclusion manager, and we're working with her on the development and rollout of that survey later this year. And then lastly, another survey we're looking at implementing will be a shorter survey. It's actually coming up really quickly. We'll probably roll it out around June. And that's a pulse check for employees. So as everyone in this room knows, we do an employee morale survey every 2 years, where we gauge a variety of different metrics. It's a very, very lengthy survey. The feeling was doing that survey every single year would probably be too much. There's a lot of other surveys and ways to fill out. But what we can do is implement a 10 to 12 question short survey, which asks specific questions tied to the strat plan, so your level of pride in the organization, your level of trust in your direct supervisor, as well as other questions within the employee morale survey that most closely match the KPIs within the strat plan. So when you bring it forward to the board, you'll probably see 2 KPIs for each of those modern policing culture pillar KPIs. One, which will be the specific question that you've seen previously in the employee morale survey, and that's so we can gauge year-over-year change. And the other one is going to be a new question introduced, such as the level of pride in the organization, which is very, very much tied to the strat plan. So that will be new baseline data for us, but then we'll be able to build on that over time and gauge the change over time. I think that's it for me. I'll leave any questions.
Thanks, Steve. Does anyone have any questions? I think we're all getting used to being in the room again together and being on these microphones and sitting around in this way, around this table, but still need for us. Thanks. That's a lot of work, and it's great. I mean, just really getting rolling with things after such a long process, getting that strategic plan finalized and completed and ready to go. It's really gratifying to see that we're starting to measure those things and really implement it. So thank you. Okay. So moving on now to other business. We have item 3.1 diversity initiatives. We've already heard about these surveys that we're going to be doing. We had some talk about whether or not this needs to stay in a separate item because we want diversity to be an item in every item and not sort of carved out as if it's separate from everything else we do. So I know it's come up at governance that maybe we should take this off the agenda because it treats diversity as something other than something that needs to be woven in everything. So I think that that's what people want to do. So, but before we do that, I just want to make sure that there's anything else to be added today. Yes, Jean.
Yeah, so thanks, and understand and
Oh, sorry.
I fully understand, and was part of that discussion at the governance committee, and as you heard from Stephen right there, like when we're looking at the strategic plan and we're looking at things, recognizing that where diversity has to be part of everything we do, whether it's hiring, policies, contract negotiations, uniform design, everything has to be kind of have that lens on it in terms of it. So the support, of course, I support it. It stays on as an item. We'll address it in your meeting. Here. I did want to point out, though, just for today's purposes, though, is we are looking at a couple things within our collective agreement. Some people know that the Surrey Place collective agreement settled, and there were some, I'm going to say some unique things within it. Some we actually realized that we can access here. I'll give you one. It's like a deferred salary plan where you defer some of your salary and take time off. It turns out TransLink actually has that program in place here. And so it's easy for us to implement that. And of course, some of the early people thinking of that are talking about it were female members who are planning on families and maybe taking time off and that. So we are constantly looking at that within it. Even we've seen maternity top-ups and stuff like that. So working both with this board and TSML to look at items such as that. So those are ongoing. We look at diversity. And then the next one, I just wanted to let you know because you'll be introduced to it at our next meeting. At our next meeting, Chris will be old hat and he'll be old news in terms of it. But starting on May the 1st, actually first day will be May 2nd, we are very fortunate to have an inspector from the Vancouver Police Department, Suzanne Muir, coming to join us also on this secondment. I'd like to really thank Adam Palmer, who was willing to let Suzanne come over. Suzanne is very accomplished, especially in the areas of ideas of equity and diversity and Indigenous relations. She's got a very investigative background, has a very extensive background, not to knock that, but she's in the Canadian Soccer Hall of Fame, so that's a big plus here, a soccer player. So again, looking at that and looking at ways for us to diversify, one is going to be, we have to create opportunities for our members internally. So we're not shutting off internal measures, but we also have to look that sometimes there's bigger and broader steps you have to take. And so as we talk to our own staff internally, we've been indicating to them, yes, there are opportunities in that, but in order to achieve, we need the right kind of almost mentors and examples and people doing that job today who are going to be able to elevate everyone's game so that they're ready to do it and become. So the next board meeting, we should hopefully, Suzanne will be here, Chris will be either excused or in the bar under the table. Sorry. Okay, those are just a couple of initiatives I wanted to let you know here. So the board's going.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, so we'll move on now to item 3.2, which is the report from the Chair of the Finance Committee and the final budget report. Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you. So the Finance Committee in its regular meeting, short agenda, but just to leave our terms of reference and decided that status quo was fine, other than some gender-based changes that would allow for more gender neutral. So that's my report with respect to the regular meeting. I've got more to report on.
Final budget session.
Yeah, the final budget submission, I'm not sure that will also include the consent agenda. So it's part of the consent agenda that's been approved. It provides for, well, that's part of the, yeah, so that's part of the right public meeting agenda. The final budget is $40,580,470. It includes the addition of positions, addition of 1 constable, 8 civilian positions, although 8 is a little bit of a misnomer because it's actually a transfer of 5 IT positions. I think Mike mentioned earlier that there's been a shift of IT positions from the transit structure to the TPS structure. And it's appropriate in the context of being more, I guess, more attuned to the IT needs of the transit police service. So at this point in time, Translink Board has approved the budget, and this matter is before our board for receiving information. Or approval, sorry, approval. And so I move that.
Thank you. So move the approval of the transit police final budget submission. All in favor? Thank you. Okay. So thank you. Thank you. Oh, yes, you are. You're celebrating on governance too.
So the notes on the governance committee meeting from March 7th, we received a report on the 2021 year-end update on our initiatives towards strengthening support of Indigenous peoples. That was on the consent agenda today, so it's something we've already received as a board. Governance committee also discussed training for the board in the area of unconscious bias to conscious inclusion. That we have been exploring opportunities in that regard, and the committee having discussed that we're currently as a board engaged in the process of receiving training and working effectively with Indigenous peoples. And that's quite an intensive training module. It can involve somewhere between 4 and 6 hours of training. So what was decided at the governance committee was that we would defer additional training for consideration in September. I think Stephen, Marie, and Carla are still in the process of deciding what sort of training would be appropriate, but that matter will come back before the board for consideration in the fall. The committee also discussed that the chair had referred to the governance committee the question as to whether we should continue our membership in the state Canadian Association of Police Governance. And the committee discussed that and decided that it was a good idea to continue membership for a number of reasons, but primarily the fact that there's an interconnectedness that occurs through that association or across Canada. So from our perspective, and given the connection with that association also has a federal government felt appropriate for our membership in that association, and that recommendation that was recommended back to the board by the committee. It's not a specific recommendation. So we will continue paying our fee and being engaged with that. However, the agenda we're dealing with this morning also includes a recommendation for members of this board who are interested in attending the annual conference of the CAPG, that we will consider that later in this agenda. I think that's the report for the governance committee. Unless there are any questions. But a few more items in here.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. All right.
Sorry.
Okay. We are at item 3.3. We need to appoint representatives to serve on the VA, the British Columbia Association of Police Force, and attend the annual conference. Anyone interested in doing that this year? Who is, it's you, is it? Yes, yeah. Do you want to do that? I find that last conference I went to was right before, was 2 years ago, almost today. And it was a really good conference, and I recommend as many directors go as possible. So all always a great learning experience, and as you say, it's always really good to connect with people who govern resources in the province. Yeah.
This year's BCAP conference is being held in Surrey, so very nearby, Skype connection. It will be the first in-person conference for in the last 2 years. So I would encourage as many directors as can to attend. There won't be a virtual component this year, so if you're going to attend, you have to attend in person. But I would, is there a need for a motion in respect of attendance? So I'll move that those that want to attend, the funding be provided for their attendance. And then but also move a motion that we sponsor a coffee break at the conference. Probably should move a motion.
Right, so I'll move that part, okay. So item 3.4. All in favor? Thank you. Here, and item 3.5, we've got the information about the Canadian Association of Police Governance Annual Conference. And call for resolutions, and we will, that's being held in September. So I'm going to ask directors to consider and bring back to us at the next meeting if you feel that there's resolutions that we need to be making or supporting, and consider also if you'd like to go to that conference in September. And we have a recommendation to approve the registration and related travel costs for directors, but perhaps we could push that or table that to the next one. So we can have less make decisions about wanting to go. So table that. Item 3.7 is the Econ Board of Directors nomination and receipts materials of less than a week ago about that board and nominating somebody who would represent the Chesapeake board on that board, and we're part of a group of Class A shareholders, and there's one person who represents those shareholders. Deputy and I spoke about this, and maybe if you want to talk about it.
Right, the board member about which this item addresses is board member on the Econ board that represents 5 entities. Abbotsford, Transit Police, West End. Oh yeah, Port Moody. And the problem is one member, it's needs to have agreement across all 5 entities that are represent who this member represents. So last year, about this time, we received a letter from the West Police Board suggesting a process that would allow us to be more efficient in the way that we approach appointing members, and I think they were suggesting a rotational process where a member from each board would be appointed on a rotational basis over a 5-year span. One thing I did note though from the letter we received in relation to Econ requesting our advice as to our recommended appointee was that some longer term of service on the board may be healthy because it going through a year and earning what Econ's all about really a year's quite short. I mean, we even experienced that on this board first year's learning experience. So what I think we should do in this regard, and I talked with Karen about whether Mike Welty, who's the current appointee from Abbotsford, who represents that group of 5, whether he's interested in staying on for another year to give us a chance to properly address the issue of how we would rotate membership on that board. But I understand from Karen that she may not be interested in further. So my suggestion may be for the purposes of us addressing this properly and carefully is maybe refer the matter to the governance committee. We may want to have a special governance committee meeting just to discuss this matter and then bring something back to the board either on the May 13th strategy session, being formally address this matter, or by way of consent resolution, if the governance committee thinks it's probably something that allows us to address it in advance of the May 13th, because the deadline for us to provide information back to Econ is May 13th, so it squeezes it pretty tightly. So I guess the motion that I would move is to have this governance committee to address in a timely way relative to the deadline that's been set by Econ for us to respond. And when I say us, I don't just mean the transit piece, I mean 5. So it will require some dialogue across those agencies. So that's my motion.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Thank you very much, Mary, for taking care of that. We have come to the end of the first portion of the first in-person meeting of the Metro Vancouver Transit Police Board in 2 years. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for showing up. And thank you to staff for getting this all organized and getting us drink and something to nibble and getting the tech all working quite beautifully and putting up with our newbiness dealing with these machines. Sound like I was born in 1904. It has been really nice to see everybody in person below the neck. And I'm looking forward to doing this more and getting a little more used to this. It is still pretty new. So thanks, everybody. And do we have anything else? We have it just we have a few minutes to go. So if anybody has anything else they want to bring up in the public portion, we can. Otherwise, around, I don't see anything. I look forward to us getting much more used to this and much more comfortable.